In the US-China struggle for global dominance, Malaysia is emerging as the unexpected powerhouse for global semiconductor chip production. Can Malaysia pull off this feat? Let us find out in this video. Stay on till the end. Why is semiconductors crucial to global geopolitics? The answer is because this small chip is found everywhere, from everyday gadgets, smartphones, toys, right up to the sophisticated defense equipment and weapons. Over 100 billion semiconductor chips are used every day. That simply tells you how important the small semiconductor chips are. Because of its universal importance, dominance in semiconductor manufacturing is also important for global dominance because it gives leverage over global supply chains. Countries that lead in this field can influence global trade flows and technology. So it should not come as any surprise that US-China struggle for dominance should include the chips manufacturing as one of its central planks. But here's the thing. The global supply chain of semiconductors is fragile. A single Taiwanese company, TSMC, produces most of the world's advanced semiconductor chips today. This is worrying because any conflict involving Taiwan and China or in the Taiwan Straits would severely disrupt global supply chains of these much needed semiconductor chips. So companies are diversifying their manufacturing bases, and this is where Malaysia comes in. Thanks to its 5-decade-long experience in semiconductors and electronic production, Malaysia is seen as a suitable place to shift the production base of semiconductors. Today, the Malaysian semiconductor industry commands about 13% of the global supply of packaging and manufacturing of chips, but this is on the low end of the supply chain. In order for Malaysia to truly dominate this sector, it needs to dominate in the high-end part as well. What is the projected value of the semiconductor industry? The industry was valued at about $600 billion, growing at a compounded annual rate of 6.3%, which means to say by 2030, it would be about 800 billion. For Malaysia, dominating this sector could also be the answer to its decades-long struggle to become a high-income nation. To understand the present, we need to understand the past. Malaysia's journey into the semiconductor industry began in the 1970s with the creation of the Bayan Lepas Free Industrial Zone in Penang. Malaysia's experiment succeeded. Good policies, well-educated workforce, strategic geographic location, all of this combined to make Penang an attractive place for many foreign companies, especially American ones, to set up manufacturing base of semiconductors. However, Penang's success came with its own set of problems. Due to political conditions in the country, federal government diverted resources from Penang in a bid to diversify its economic base in other parts of the country. But sadly, that started the marginalization of Malaysia's position in the global semiconductor production race. And that brings us to the current situation. The present shift of companies away from Taiwan looking for a new production base gives Malaysia a second chance. The Malaysian government has recognized this as a critical goal. Towards this end, on the policy side, the government has introduced Malaysia's Industrial Master Plan for 2030, which aims to position Malaysia as a semiconductor manufacturing hub. And following up on its policy, the Malaysian government is making huge investments, including in setting up the required infrastructure like industrial parks in Penang, where companies can set up their manufacturing base. And this has attracted major players like Jabil, Western Digital, Infineon, and also Chinese conglomerates. Leading firms like Intel are committing $7 billion of investment to set up new plants in Penang. Another major player, Infineon, is investing $5.4 billion in a new plant in Penang for the production of silicon carbide chips, which are crucial parts for electrical vehicles. Apart from this, many other companies are also setting up their own plants or upgrading their existing facilities. Local companies too are getting in the game. Companies like ST Microelectronics and Upstart Technology are setting up their own wafer production plants as well. But much more needs to be done, of course. Malaysia needs something like $107 billion of investment to properly dominate in the high-end part of this manufacturing sector. But it looks like Penang is off to a good start. It has already attracted $12.8 billion in 2023 alone. And to put it in context, this is more than 7 years of investment of the previous years. But there are challenges ahead. Let us examine some of the key challenges. The first challenge is domestic politics or domestic political culture. It seems that national interest has become lost to narrow racial and religious political issues in Malaysia. Political parties are vying for power by championing narrow issues with disregard to the overall national interest of the country. To dominate the global high-end chip manufacturing industry is a long-term game, but Malaysia must take heed of its past successes if it wants to succeed in the future. The forward-looking policies and the united view of a national interest that was implemented 5 decades ago are coming to help Malaysia today. Far too many scholars and experts have spoken about this. It is important for Malaysia to have an honest conversation about its direction. Unpopular decisions will have to be made. The second big challenge is corruption. In order to dominate in any global sector, a much higher level of transparency is required. The local anti-corruption agency is doing its job, is going after corrupt people and corrupt practices, but much more needs to be done. The civil service in particular must be seen as above board and clean and corruption-free. The third challenge is human capital. If Malaysia truly wants to dominate in the high-end part of the semiconductor manufacturing industry or sector, it needs more engineers. It needs a better educated workforce. However, the Malaysian education system is apparently not turning out the right type of educated workforce. According to the World Bank report, after 12 and a half years of schooling, Malaysian children are apparently only equipped with something like 8.9 years of school. In comparison, Vietnamese children acquire something like 10.7 years, almost 2 years more schooling than their Malaysian counterparts. So the Malaysian government simply cannot ignore World Bank reports. The other problem is that, as I have mentioned earlier, the race-based policies are also encouraging an outward immigration of talent. This has to be addressed also by the government by providing proper incentives so that it can retain its own talent in the country for its future needs. The next challenge is geopolitical challenges. By now, it must be clear to you that the shift towards Malaysia for this high-end manufacturing of semiconductors is due to geopolitics. For Malaysia to retain that position, it needs to preserve its strategic autonomy. It must not be seen as being aligned to any major power. It must balance its relations with China and the United States. It must not be seen as being aligned to one or the other. Both relationships are vital. It needs to preserve and protect both its bilateral relations. And then there is this issue of BRICS. Malaysia wants to join BRICS. It sees BRICS as an important avenue or way to diversify its economic opportunities. But BRICS, as you know, is made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And Russia is seen as using BRICS to form what is an alternative to the US-led global world order. This is not a game where Malaysia should be participating in. Reshaping global order is not for small players like Malaysia. Malaysia must make it very clear that its interest to join BRICS is purely for economic purposes. So, is Malaysia the next powerhouse in global semiconductor manufacturing industry? The answer is a nuanced yes, but its ambitions depend on being able to successfully overcome its historical, domestic, and geopolitical challenges that we have described earlier. Tough decisions are needed, but they are essential. So, what do you think? You think Malaysia can be the next powerhouse in semiconductor manufacturing industry? What other challenges do you think Malaysia needs to overcome? If you have any thoughts, please share your comments below. If you liked this video, please hit the like, share and subscribe button. And I shall see you soon.